Hi, glad you could join us. Have you ever taken the time to find your roots so it can help you have a better sense of who you are? Um, we have these TV programs like Who Do You Think You Are? Explores a person's ancestry, and we see them discover lots about their connections and then how that might shape their identity and their roots of where they come from, but it also can leave them feeling uncertain. And sometimes we might have wished we had asked more about our parents and their past and where they grew up and who knew what and when and where. Um, and it's a good thing to find out. And over these past few months, we've twisted and turned and weaved in and out of John's Gospel, and we've seen how John really takes from his experience with Jesus and shows the early church that what happened then has something to say to their situation. And indeed, it's enduring enough that it enables us to apply it to our lives too. And so those chain of events comes all the way down to us, and we just need to appreciate more. Where did it all start? You see, choosing a starting point can reflect what community we're speaking into and what community we hope to become, or what community we think we have stemmed from. And that's why it's interesting to see where each of the Gospels start. For instance, Mark's Gospel, considered to be one of the first who it's written, really kicks off very fast pace with John the Baptist, and if there was a choice on Netflix you would probably find it under the thriller section. Now, it is with the events and then the action-packed series of events that take place, and that kind of really relates strongly to a person's immediate experience, and that can speak a lot into people's lives as they love the reality of experience and how they can feel alive as a result of that. We may know of people and churches that love those thrills. It's action-packed, high-powered, and we even have churches probably like that too, that are loud and full on and are just jumping. I wonder if we had that element of joy and thrill in life and also in church. Then you've got Matthew and Luke. They go back a bit further than John the Baptist meeting, and Luke goes back to the birth of Jesus at the beginning of his Gospel. Both, I suppose, would be found in a history docudrama of Netflix, and then you would find out a bit more about what's going on. But the two of them have different reasons for how they want to use history to tell a story. Luke loves history because he wants us to understand how we weave in and out of each other and the connections we have with one another through circumstance of life. He investigates and leaves no stone unturned, and he even checks right back to the genealogy of Jesus to Adam. Because if you want to believe in a story, it's important that it's a people that you feel you can believe in as a true story. And I find that with some people, that people really like the coincidence of life, and they love the way that life can have a wonderful twist and turn to it, and just trying to understand it is important to them. So finding out if it's true, finding if it's true for us, is all part and parcel of that emphasis on history within Luke. He wants to show and explain how God's hand was in our lives, and likewise some people do the same. And there's nothing like a good story about how life works out for someone. We have plenty of those in Christian bookshops, and they have a great story to tell, and they notice the circumstance of the way God works in their life. And maybe we could learn from that too, that as we look back, we see through the circumstances of life that God's hand has been at work in our lives. Matthew, though, a wee bit different. Still on the History Channel of Netflix at the start, if you want to categorise it like that. But unlike Luke, Matthew puts his genealogy of Jesus before the story of the birth of Jesus. And why? Well, first of all, it goes back to Abraham, and he, in one sense, wants to make a connection to the past, where there was a sense of order, a sense of something being built upon, a nation that would be fulfilled, and take great heart from what happened in the past, how traditions were alive and evolving. You know, we live in a world where some just love order. They admire and respect the good ways of the past, and they have so much to teach us from now right to the very start of where we are now. And they would think it foolish just to start from scratch and not learn from these things that have been passed down to us. And we get that today. We have institutions and professions that have been built up through the years with knowledge, with a high standing, and as a result are able to be a real foundation for how a society might work. It happens in churches too. You have those traditional churches with a sense of order and liturgy and professionalism, and they give a foundation from one generation to the next. I suppose the Church of Scotland can be like that, as other denominations in other countries. Maybe we like those traditions and see the sense of the past and how they are ordered, and that can speak into our lives and can give some security. Maybe we need that, and that can work in some people's lives, where it can give them a sense of security and control. However, over these past few weeks and months, I've not used any of those gospel stories, and I've stuck with just one of them, and that's John's Gospel. Why? Well, to be honest, I don't know for sure at the beginning, but on the most part, I've been working from back to front. And that's not hard in the John's Gospel, because half of it is dedicated to the last few weeks of Jesus' life. But the Gospel is telling stories that we can learn from, and it goes back further than a thriller that you would find with Mark, or a historical start like Luke, or with Matthew trawling through the past to Abraham, the father of faiths. John takes us back even further. The first few words sounds like Genesis, in the beginning, which literally means the book of beginnings in our Bible. But John even goes further than even the Genesis story. He goes before time. He takes our story from eternity itself. You see, he was saying to the people he was writing to, this is where we truly began, because this is what we need to be now, because that's where we'll end up. You see, the stuff of dreams and the echoes of eternity that we have birthed in this moment was all coming from before time. It goes back further than experience, history, or order, or tradition. And you see, we find ourselves in the very being of God. And John was one of the last Gospels to be written. And it's probably one of the most profound out of them. And there's more depth and wonder in them, because John and his community had reflected on the impact of Jesus in their lives. You see, before there was ever a religion, a race, a gender, there was that unity of light. Nothing refracted, the only opposite was darkness. And what pierced that darkness was the light of the world, Jesus himself. And we've seen that through the stories that have echoed through this particular gospel, speaking of eternity itself. And it's a call out to us to follow such stuff of dreams. It took them to the point in their community where that phrase is one that we know today: God is love. See, I wonder what church we want and need to be in this world. It's okay to have the thrills and spills, and many of us in the world are wired that way for good or ill. It's good to be grounded in reality so we know what we hold on to is true and is not from some kind of whim. It's good to be grounded in order and tradition to keep the structure of our lives secure. But the difference between the good and the great is to see that our very being is birthed out of God's very being. And our one true home is to find a community that loves, that spans any sense of division, whether it's been warped by religion or race or gender. Maybe being a follower of Jesus takes us beyond such divisions, so we can join the people of the way, as they were once told. We will find out more, I hope, about what that community looks like and how it can be lived. Take care. Thanks for joining.